how many are PhD students? Master's students? Any undergrads? Postdocs? Okay. Okay. So, how many are from a STEM discipline? Great. Arts and humanities? Oh. Well, I'm sorry. Most of you will still get a lot out of this, I promise. Most of my examples are going to be science-based, though. But they're very generic science-based. So, my name is Mike Mitchell. I'm the Proposal Development Coordinator at the Office of Proposal Development, which is a part of the Office of Research. Before I was at the Office of Research, though, I was a program manager at the Florida Office of Energy. Our primary responsibility is working on renewable energy and alternative fuel vehicle policy for the state of Florida. While I was there, I got about $17 million worth of funding from the U.S. Department of Energy and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, mainly in the areas of agricultural energy use and electric vehicles. You will see I'm an electric vehicle enthusiast. If any of you would like to talk to me afterwards about why your next car should be electric, I will more than gladly talk to you for a lengthy amount of time. So before we begin, another note is that grants equal fellowships equals awards. I'm going to say the word grant over and over and over again because in my office, that's what we say. It means the same thing as a fellowship, same thing as an award. We're just talking about anytime you're going to ask a government agency or a foundation to give you money to do something. There is no one way to do this. Every time I do this presentation, inevitably someone will raise their hand and say, well, in my field, we do it this way. That's great. In your field, yeah, you do it that way. I don't know your field, though. So the best people to talk to when you're going to go write a grant or a proposal of any kind is the person who's in charge of the program that you were talking to, and then someone who has been funded by the program you are applying to. This presentation is going to be great for very general things that you want to do. But if you're going to apply to the NSF Graduate Fellowship Program, you want to talk to somebody who has applied to the NSF Graduate Fellowship Program. I have not. I never have. So I'll tell you how to write things persuasively, but I can't tell you the little nuances of how to write for that particular program. And then finally, you, yes you, can get grants. You'll notice that I didn't introduce myself as Dr. Mitchell. I don't have a PhD. When I got that $17 million, I didn't even have a master's. I was 23 when I got my first grants. Anybody can do this. It is not as hard as it seems. I know that when you start reading things like this funding opportunity is governed by 10 CFR, blah, 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 and there are millions of dollars involved, and all this stuff, it looks really scary the first time you see it. I promise it's not. It's just writing. Everybody in here has written more than they would care to admit. This is just a different way of writing. And that would be persuasive versus expository. So how many people got their undergraduate degree here in the state of Florida? Okay, so you guys took the mandatory speech class, right? You remember having to do the persuasive speech and the expository speech? This is the same thing. You're just going to do a persuasive piece of writing rather than an expository. So you'll notice I have two examples here of the way you phrase things. In an expository piece, you would say, I have conducted this experiment. It is based on this theory of science, and here's what I found. You would write this way if you were going to write a report or a journal article or something like that. And it's generally written in the past tense. Now that's compared to persuasive writing, which is what you're going to do in a grant proposal, in which you would phrase something like this. I want to conduct this experiment. It's based upon this theory of science still. Here is why you should give me money to do this. This is a sales pitch. You're not reporting what you've done anymore. You're trying to tell someone why they should give you money to do something. So, funding agencies and foundations. I'm going to use funding agencies over and over and over again. It's all applicable to foundations just the same. So if you think about why do funding agencies give out grants, right? They don't give them to you for you. That's not the point. They have something that they want to achieve. If they're a government agency, they have been charged by Congress and by extension the American people to accomplish some mission. So take the Department of Energy, for example. The Department of Energy did not give me a grant because I wanted a grant, because I needed to be paid. They gave me a grant because I was saying, I'm going to conduct this project which will help you, Department of Energy, and by extension the United States of America, expand the use of electric vehicles. So when you write something, you need to keep that in mind, that you have to you have to sell what you were doing in terms that they want to hear. Right? So you're not going to be able to sell them something if they're not buying. That's why you have to send your proposal to the right agency. And you have to understand what they're looking for before you can start writing a proposal. Because it doesn't make any sense to start writing this thing and then find out that you're trying to apply to the wrong agency or the wrong foundation. So you're going to want to look at things like the website of the funding agency. Just about every search for anything today starts with Google. That would be your first stop. Then you want to go a little deeper and look at some strategic or annual reports. So is it in their 2015 to 2020 strategic vision that they're going to fund a bunch of fellowships in your particular area? Or in an area that's not yours, but that's all they're going to focus on. That's something you would want to know again before you started writing. If you want to go even deeper, you start looking at speeches or presentations by top officials. Sometimes a foundation director will say in an address to the board of governors of their organization, yeah, we're going to work on this topic here in the next couple of years. But it's not really anywhere else other than that one person's speech. And then some previous awards and awardees. Everybody out there publishes who they funded in the past. You can look at what kinds of topics have been funded in the last couple of years to get an idea of what have they done previously. And then so maybe also they would not be interested in funding more of the same thing. And then, and it pains me that I have to say this, you have to look at the actual funding opportunity announcement that they have put out to make sure that what you're proposing to do fits with that one document. So that brings me to this point, that a proposal is more like a job interview than it is a journal article. So when you go to a job interview, they're not going to give you a job because you need a job. They're going to give you a job because they need something done. It's the same principle with grants. No one's giving you a grant because you need a grant. They're giving you a grant because you were promising to be able to accomplish something that they want to accomplish. So you want to do your homework. You want to understand the progress of the funding agency, like I said. You want to read some successful examples of proposals to that agency if you can. So I know my office for faculty has a database of successful proposals. But does the graduate school have something like that?
No, but what we can do is if we have a previous award winner that from FSU that was a graduate student or they're still one, then we can get you in contact with them, and then sometimes they are willing to share their successful proposal.
Now, I don't know about your experience, but I've actually had a lot of success asking other faculty to please share their proposal. I think there really is this kind of era of secrecy about grants for some reason, that once you start asking isn't actually there. People are very willing to share their success. And they're also willing to talk to you. You know, if you just want to talk to them and say, hey, what did you do? How did you write your proposal to this agency? Is there any trick that you learned that I wouldn't have picked up in a general proposal writing class? A lot of times they're very willing to talk to you. And then again, so look at recent awards, who has been funded, where have they been funded. It might be that no one at Florida State has ever been awarded whatever this grant is that you were applying for. That's actually a good thing for you, or it can be a good thing for you, because a lot of times agencies and foundations want to spread the funding around. They want to make sure there's a good geographic representation of where they're sending their funds. And then, if possible, find out who the reviewers are. There are some federal agencies like NIH where you can find out specifically who's going to be on your review panel. That's important because if they're in your field, you want to cite their work if they're going to review your proposal. Again, read the funding opportunity announcement. If you ever write a proposal and you've not read the funding opportunity announcement, I don't want to talk to you. Don't do that, please. Are you eligible for the funding opportunity? Is it maybe for PhD students only, not master's students? Is it for people who have already graduated? I know there's one, when I was going to do research for this, I was looking up some fellowships from various agencies out there. And so I looked at NSF, NIH, and NEH, the National Endowment for Humanities, and found that the NEH fellowships are not for graduate students. I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't read the funding opportunity announcement before I went to write for it. What does it do? You know, obvious things you want to look for. Who's the program officer? That goes back to what I said in the last slide about the first thing you're going to want to talk to is who runs that program. If you have any questions at all, they would be the first stop. You know, I have do the references count in the page limits, or is this general idea of what I want to do, is that within the interests of your agency? they're probably not going to answer a question like, will you fund my proposal before you submit your proposal? But they'll answer a question of, are you guys interested in this part, this field of science, or are you interested in that field of science? Or these authors and not those authors. And then you're going to want to read the description specifically for the kinds of programs or projects that you're looking for. Understand the review criteria. That'll also be in the funding opportunity announcement, or that will be somewhere else on the agency's website. You're going to want to know what you're going to be graded on before you write the proposal. Again, it's the same thing like in your classes. If you have a research project assigned as part of the class, you want to go and look and see how are you going to be graded on that. And then you want to, and we'll touch on this in a few minutes, write with the intention of providing certain lines within your proposal that match up specifically with written criteria for the grant. So to use an example, NSF, their merit review criteria are based on the intellectual merit of your project and the broader impacts of your project. So you want to have a sentence somewhere in your proposal that says, the intellectual merit of my project is. Actually, we'll touch on that more in a few minutes. So reviewers, the other side of the grant process here. So there's two types of reviewers. There's the kind that works for the funding agency, and their motivation is to select projects that will have a high likelihood of achieving funding agency's priorities. It's basically the same thing as what the funding agency is looking for. But then, and more prevalent in the scientific community, is the volunteer reviewer. There's someone out there, a professor somewhere else, or they're an expert in the field, and they have volunteered their time to come review these projects. Or they have been told by the agency because they previously received a grant that they're going to volunteer to come review their projects. Their motivation is slightly different. They want to select quality projects, they want to provide a service to their field, they want to keep up with the latest research, all these things. I would argue that they also want to go home. Right? They're volunteers. If any of you have ever received the response from a professor, I'm sorry, I'm really busy right now, they're really busy all the time, and now they've also volunteered to read a bunch of proposals. So even if they started out wanting to do it, by the end they probably don't want to do it anymore. Like I said, they're not experts in your very specific area of research. To give you an example, I got put on a review panel one time for electric vehicles, because my expertise was in electric vehicles. My expertise in electric vehicles is on the social sciences side of electric vehicles. I was presented with a proposal that said someone was going to work on new chemistry for batteries. Right? I had no idea what any of that was. But I knew about electric vehicles. And it's kind of the same thing here. Someone might be a quantum physicist instead of a high energy physicist. Or they might be a classical English expert and not a modern English expert, something like that. So you want to write your proposal generally enough that someone who is familiar with the very broad field that you are in will understand it, but they won't necessarily understand exactly what it is you do. And so think of it this way, the highest level that you can guarantee every one of your reviewers has is high school. Everyone that reviews your proposal is going to have a high school education. You can't guarantee that they're even going to have a BS in your field. And you certainly can't guarantee they're going to have a PhD in your specific area. Like I said, they have to read a lot of proposals in a relatively short amount of time. Everybody gets assigned at least 5 or 6 proposals, generally, for their panel. And they have to review all of them within a weekend or so. And they maybe they got flown out somewhere. Maybe they're out in Washington, D.C., away from home, away from their kids, their family, all that kind of stuff. They're not paid, or they're not paid enough. And like I said, at some point they're probably regretting their decision to be a reviewer. So all of that is leading me to this point. You want to reduce your reviewer's cognitive burden. So is everybody familiar with the idea that every person out there has a finite amount of mental resources? You can only do so many things before you start to lose attention, lose effectiveness, and that kind of stuff. That's what you're thinking about here, is that when you're away from home, not being paid, you have little to no motivation besides service to the field, you're losing your interest in doing this. And so that biases your reviews negatively. You want to be friendly to the reviewers. You don't want to make them think too much. You want to tell them exactly what it is that you want them to take away from the proposal. So to do that, we're going to do these 3 SMART goals and some do's and don'ts. You'll notice that Heilmeyer's Catechism and SMART goals are there on your handout. Heilmeyer's Catechism is simply a series of questions that every proposal ever written has to answer. First question is, what are you trying to do? This is the most self-explanatory of them, but you'd be surprised at the number of people who do not clearly state what are they trying to do with their project. So we're just going to use this really silly example. This project will demonstrate that the law of gravity is applicable to oranges. Right? That's what this project's going to do. Question number 2, how is it done today and what are the limits of current practice? Currently, the law of gravity has been demonstrated as applying to apples. While apples are an important fruit, gravity has not been shown to be applicable to other fruits, specifically the orange, right? So today, we all know that gravity affects apples because it applies to people. We don't know, theoretically, we don't know if it applies to oranges. So that's the limit of the current practice. What's new in your approach and why do you think we'll be successful? Well, based upon the law of gravity, our approach differs in its use of oranges rather than traditionally apples. And then we also believe that oranges will be successful because they have been observed falling from trees similarly to the apple. So, what are you doing differently? What is it about what you propose to do that hasn't been done before? And then also, if it hasn't been done before, how do you know that it's going to work? You have to have some kind of a basis for why you're trying the approach that you are. Who cares? If you're successful, what difference is this going to make? Demonstrating the law of gravity with oranges is important because why ever that would be important. And that kind of statement really should be in every proposal that you write. My project is important because successful completion of this research will revolutionize orange farming. Just for example. Most importantly, you should give me money to throw oranges off of buildings because that's really the question you're trying to answer with this portion of the catechism here. What are the risks and what are the payoffs? This project depends heavily upon the availability of oranges. If adequate supplies of oranges cannot be obtained, grapefruits will be fine, but they won't splatter as nicely. And the risk of inadequate supplies of oranges is offset by the greater splatter potential, right? So, not everything you do is going to work. I mean, it's science, right? Not everything you predict happens. What is the risk, though, that if you propose to do A and A doesn't work, can you do B? Right? And then if A doesn't work, what do you do differently so that you can continue on with your project? And then similarly to the last one, who cares? What's the payoff if you are successful? If all the risks fall into place and you succeed in your project, what will be the benefit? What are the midterm and final exams to check for success? At the end of year 1, we expect to have thrown 1,000 oranges off the building. You want to quantify this if you can. Or if you're going to do some kind of like qualitative research, at least say we plan to have conducted X number of interviews or something like that so that you can show measurable progress. The second broad thing we're talking about SMART goals. When you phrase an objective or a goal for your proposal, you want to phrase it using this concept of SMART, which stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. Specific, again, kind of self-explanatory. You want to be very clear and focused. You don't want your statement to be able to be misinterpreted or have any kind of assumptions or definitions that need to be interpreted by the reviewer. You want to tell them specifically what you are doing. Measurable, quantified compared to other data. Available to show meaningful analysis of progress. Attainable, it's a reasonable goal. It's something that you can do. That's kind of a judgment call. And we'll see an example here in a second. You need to just make sure that you don't state outlandish things that are impossible to achieve. Relevant, fits with your project's overall theme. Everybody knows about relevancy when you conduct an experiment. You want to make sure that you are measuring something, or what you were measuring is what you set out to measure. And then timely, the work is doable within the performance period of the award. So let's look at an example that is not SMART. Anybody tell me why this is not SMART? Come on, linear at all. It might be achievable. We don't know. We don't have enough information. Relevant, again, we don't really know based on this statement. It might be relevant within the broader context of the proposal, and then timely, there's no information about that. So this is the same, this statement is the dumbed down version of this statement from a successful proposal. This project will conduct a statewide survey of 1,047 mathematics teachers and 35,000 students in 6th through 8th grades and 201 middle. All right, so you can already see this is very specific and it's measurable. Is it achievable? Again, judgment call, 1,047 mathematics teachers and 35,000 students. You're going to send out a survey to them. That sounds like it's achievable, at least within, I think this was a 5-year grant that they were applying for. Is it relevant? That's what this gold statement down at the bottom states. The information collected will allow us to evaluate the influence of factors such as those described in our project summary. Yes, so it's relevant. Is it timely? Yes. Survey of students will occur in year 1 in County A and in year 2 in County B. So they've said in here how it's timely. So you can see if you were presented with this kind of statement and you were a reviewer, you would not have anywhere near enough information to make an accurate judgment about the merits of this proposal. But if you're presented with this, you have a much clearer idea of what they're doing, whether or not they can achieve it, and why it's important. So, some do's and do nots for proposals, starting with do nots. Do not use big words. You'll see that I put big words in quotation marks because what I mean is you don't want anybody ever to have to stop while they're reading, pause on a word, and wonder even for a half a second, what does that word mean? You especially don't want them to ever have to stop what they're doing, pull out their phone, and look up what a word means. Unnecessarily. So if you're going to write a proposal, you have to put in some kind of a complex chemical symbol or something that they're not going to know. That's one thing. You have to do that. But if you're going to say something like, this project will elucidate the theory of science, elucidate just means to shed light upon. Why not just say, this project is going to look into or explain or do something along those lines, rather than using this word elucidate that is kind of obscure. Similarly, the broader impact activities of this project will allow students to experience visual impressions of a working lab. Experience visual impressions. Think about that. What does that mean? You're going to look at something. This was in the context of taking students on a tour through the lab. They were literally just going to come in and look around and see what was in there. But it was phrased in experience visual impressions of a lab. So yes, you know what all those words mean, but it sounds kind of pretentious. Why would you not just say something much simpler? Hitherto, the theory of science was driven by. Previously, the theory of science was driven by. You see, there's the different connotations between the two ways of phrasing those things. This was one of my favorites, the second one here. This is the biggest stretch for an acronym I had ever seen. The Visual Analysis Tool for Restrictive Eligibility Criteria, which stands for Valeria. If you hadn't capitalized those letters in there, I would have never guessed that that's where you were drawing an acronym from. And this project will metamorphosize the field of science. I don't know if metamorphosize is even a word. And these all, by the way, these examples all came out of real proposals. I spent yesterday afternoon going through a whole big list of everything that I've ever reviewed, trying to find examples to show you all, and these came directly out. Other than theory of science was changed from whatever the actual theory they were working on. Do not use grandiose language. So what I mean by that is don't oversell your stuff. You want to show excitement, and you want to say that what you're going to do is impactful and it's going to make a difference, but you don't want to go overboard with it. So examples, the proposed project will revolutionize the field of science. All right, you can maybe tell me that. You can maybe say it's going to revolutionize. That's a bit of a stretch, though. It's a bit on the edge. What you want to say is that we're going to make a significant contribution to science, not radically change the whole thing. The proposed research represents a total paradigm shift. Same idea. This research will solve climate change and end world hunger. Again, that is way too much. This is not an example for a real proposal. The project will be the most important work in physics since the days of Einstein. Again, that is way too much. No one in the world has ever done research even similar to this. This one I do actually see variations of very, very commonly. It will say something like, no one has ever done this approach before. No one has, to our knowledge, no one has ever done work in a similar field. If you say something like that, you better be really, really, really sure that no one else has done that. Because if that reviewer reads that and says, well, Dr. Smith over at the University of Miami has done that, well then you look like you didn't do your due diligence in writing this proposal. This last one, with this single $100,000 grant, I will do, and then list a bunch of things that you would have to have $1 million to do. This is related to budgeting, which I don't want to get too much into budgeting, but you need to be conscious of how much money is available for your project and not try to say that you're going to do a ton of things that you would need a lot of money to do. You want to avoid run-on sentences. You actually want to do this in any time you write. You especially want to do it in grant proposals because, again, the reviewers are going to be tired, they're going to be distracted, and if they have to read something like that, which these are from directly out of proposals. And this is a single sentence that goes on and on and on. It breaks your concentration, you get lost in it. You can very easily go in here and split these into 2 or 3 different sentences, 2 or 3 different points to make your proposal much clearer. Walls of text. When you get done writing, you want to take a step back and just look at it. Don't read it. Just if you were faced with this, how would you like to read this? How would you like to read 25 pages of this? How would you like to read this? This is the same information, by the way. I took this, took away all the spaces and all the bold and all the titles, and you're left with that. So you see how easy it is. I mean, this is simple format, and it makes a world of difference when you're reading 10, 20 different proposals. Do not make the reviewer infer meaning. This is tell them what you want them to think. Can you guys, I don't know if you can see these bullet points or not. Based on this prior research, the next step is obvious. Well, to you it's obvious. To me it's not obvious. I don't know what the next step is. Once process A has been completed, we will then begin work on process C. All right, so you can see kind of what the problem with that statement is. We expect our work to yield important results. We will work with our partners to complete this project. Or you could say, based on the prior research, the next step is, and you state the next step. Why would you not do that? Why would you make the reviewer try to figure out what the next step is? Once process A is complete, we will then begin process B, which leads to process C. So in this example here, you previously had said that you were going to skip right on something else, and you made the reviewer infer that you had to have a middle step there. You want to make sure that you spell out every single step that you have to do. We expect our work to yield important results, such as, and you say what those important results are. And we will work with our partners to complete the project. Specifically, we will do process A, they will do B, and we will collaborate on C. Work with is one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to reviewing proposals, because people will say, I'm going to work with so-and-so, and they never tell me what work with them means. That becomes a throwaway collaboration that means nothing, because work with can mean anything. Do these things. Your title, you want it to be clear, concise, active, interesting. It does not have to be academic sounding. So what do I mean by that? These are 2 examples of what I could have titled a workshop that my office gave last fall. A general presentation on the mechanics of proposal preparation with a secondary specific focus on the National Science Foundation. Or the basics of grant writing, NSF. Those mean the same thing, right? This is the exact same workshop. All the information you need is conveyed in the bottom one, but I could have said it the way I did up there on top. Most journal articles have a title that sounds something more similar to the top example than the bottom example. So to give you another example, one of the grants that I wrote was called the FRED grant, the Farm Renewables and Efficiency Demonstration Program, FRED. It was very memorable. I got comments later on from the program manager that they had a good laugh at the name because it is kind of silly, but they remembered what we were doing. If I had called that something, an experiment to determine the effects of financial incentive programs on farmers in the state of Florida to encourage the use of energy-efficient technologies. That's still accurate, not memorable at all. This is even more important for foundations and for companies if you ever want to try to apply for corporate funding. Because they have a secondary motive beyond simply achieving their goals. They want to look good. They want to fund projects that sound cool. They want to be able to go back to their donors and to their board and say, yeah, look at all these really awesome projects that we've funded. Not look at these really sciencey sounding projects that you don't know what they mean, but trust us, that's good. That's good work. You want to bold, italicize, and underline key points. This came out much smaller than I thought it did. But if you look at this, those of you in the front row anyway, if you look at this, what is the first thing that you see on this page? Second thing, maybe behind the graphic there. You see the statement, this proposed work aims to understand the dynamic structure, property, performance, blah, blah, blah. You see what they're doing. So the first thing, as soon as you open it up, is what the project is about. That's really important because first impressions. Especially with grant proposals, almost every reviewer that I've ever talked to has said, I decide on the very first page whether or not to fund the project. So if they're not going to fund you, that decision has been made almost as soon as they start the meeting. If they're going to fund you, proposal to justify why they are going to say no to you. Again, I'm sorry you guys can't see this, but this is a similar one where we expect to produce 15 to 20 African-American PhDs, directly impact 30 to 40 undergraduates, and influence about 100 graduate students. So they have bolded a statement which is really important to this proposal. This was for a training program for engineers over the College of Engineering. So when a reviewer opens this up, the first thing they see is a really cool graphic, which we'll talk about in a second, and a statement that says they're going to impact a significant number of African-American PhDs before they've even read anything else. So they're going to go into this with a much more positive impression of the proposal than if they were faced with, honestly, the same proposal without bolding, because this is kind of a wall of text, like I said, not to do. They also give us a really cool name. The Center for Complex Materials Design, the Command Center. That's a cool name. That's memorable to people who are going to fund this. So graphics. Graphics are a good way to break up walls of text. And they can be important. They can convey messages in a much easier to understand format. But there are good ways and bad ways to use graphics. Up top here is a good way. This demonstrates a process for reinforcing plastics with carbon fiber for use in advanced aeronautical applications. The bottom picture shows advanced aeronautical applications. If you submitted, and this proposal went to the Air Force Office of Science, the Air Force Office of Science knows what the F-35 looks like. You're just wasting a ton of space showing those cool airplanes. So you don't want to do that. Similarly, this is a schematic up here showing the process of abiotic and biotic factors of fish in the Gulf of Mexico. The bottom is a picture of the Gulf of Mexico. All right? Coefficient of thermal expansion. Even if you understood what the science was, which I don't either, you would see that this shows something really cool with what they're going to do on the left and what the current process is on the right. The bottom is a picture of space shuttle heat tiles or something like that. It doesn't show anything, doesn't help in any way. Structure of the proposal. When you write, you can either jump in, start writing, just go at it, write it, or you can form an outline and have an idea of we're going to have this section, and this section, and this section, and this section. I highly recommend you do the second one for proposals. People generally do not review proposals by starting with line 1 and finishing with line X. They're going to jump around and look at different sections. And if your proposal is just all jumbled up and you can't really tell where anything is, and it doesn't really have any kind of logical structure to it, if they're going to try to find this one section that they have to evaluate, because they say, for example, they have to evaluate the broader impacts of, or the impacts to society of your work, and they can't find a subsection that's called impacts to society. Eventually, when they do find it, they might be kind of annoyed that they had to look so far, and they're not going to rate it very favorably. So if you look at this example up here, this is the first page of actually the grant that I wrote. So it's got a project background, it's got this, project objectives, objective 1, 2, 3, methods, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, which correspond to objectives 1, 2, and 3. And then from there on, you kind of follow how everything is going. You tie it back to the overall objective of the proposal. And then just tell me what you want to do. Again, don't make them think at all unless they have to. The proposal should state within the first paragraph, preferably be the first sentence, what are you trying to do? A kind of cliche that I heard at a conference one time was every line down from the top that a reviewer has to go before they find what you're doing is 1% less likely that they're going to fund your project. Well, I'll show you an example here. A lot of people, when they write, because this is how you write academically, you provide a lot of background information, you provide all the history of everything else that's going on in this field, and then at the bottom you show what you're going to do. So it's like this. The ratio looks like background, 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 what I'm going to do, right? For a proposal, you want to look more like this. What I'm going to do. Why it's important that I do what I do. Background, 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 all this stuff. Your background information, you want it to be a concise explanation of the field that you're in. You do not want to have every study ever published in that area. You want to have the most important, the most relevant. You want to give enough to let the reviewers know that you know what you're talking about, and that you have done your homework, and that what you're proposing to do is in some way supported by prior research. But remember that you have a page limit. And remember that the most important thing in this is what you're going to do, not what's already been done. And this, if you take nothing else away from this presentation, please take this. When you go and you review the merit review criteria, whatever it is that you're applying to, pick out keywords. It'll be things like, this proposal will be evaluated based upon its contribution to the field of whatever. Or this project, 10% of this project's score will be based upon the project management plan. Or we're looking to fund projects that help, that contribute to the community in some way. So then in your proposal, you want to write statements that say, this project has the potential to advance the science, or advance the field of science, and match their terms specifically. Because what's going to happen is, the reviewer's going to have a sheet of paper in front of them that says, please rate the following proposal based upon its contribution to the field of science. So then if you have a statement or a section that says contribution to the field of science, they can go find that and copy and paste if they want to into their review how we're going to advance the field of science. A similar example would be the proposed project fulfills the Department of Science's long-term goal of advancing science by. Right, so you've gone back and you figured out what it is that federal agency is looking for, what kind of projects do they want to fund, and then you say specifically, we will advance you, the Department of whatever, your mission by doing this. So it's an easy way for them to just, you can copy and paste and put on their review sheet how you're meeting their review criteria. And then beyond the narrative section of the proposal, every grant has a lot of parts to it. Every proposal has a lot of parts to it. What we spend the most time talking about, the most time working on, most time obsessing over sometimes, is the narrative, is what you're writing down, the sales pitch that you're trying to use to convince this agency. But there's also a lot of other things that do go into the proposal. Your bio sketch, your CV, your resume, letters of support from collaborators, or letters of recommendation from professors. Any kind of equipment or facilities that you might need to complete your projects, data management plans, that's a big one now. Ways that you're going to share your data with the scientific community. These are all typically separate documents that this information does not go into your narrative, but it is required. So if you have, say, a month to do this grant, for example, and you spend 3.5 weeks writing your narrative, you don't want to cram all of this stuff into like 2 or 3 days before it's due, because you'll make mistakes or you'll forget something. And every one of these things can kill your project. So if you don't include your CV, you'll just get thrown out. It doesn't matter how good your proposal is, they won't even read it. You didn't meet the bare minimum requirements. And that's how you see things like the National Science Foundation receives over 50,000 proposals every year. About 50% of them are missing something or in some way are just completely ineligible and don't get reviewed. So you want to make sure you have enough time to collect and to format these things, because every agency requires your resume being in a different form, or your CV being in a different form, or some of them will require that your letter of recommendation say a very specific thing that you don't want to find out about at 11:30 when it's due at midnight. And then very briefly on the budget. Like I mentioned earlier, one of the things that that you don't want to state is that you're going to do $1 million worth of work for a $100,000 project, or for $100,000 that are available to you by the funding agency. You want to ask for specifically what you need, because the people who review your proposal have also written proposals themselves in the past, and they can tell if you are promising too much for the available funds, or if you're making up costs to try to come out to a higher number. So if you are going to apply for, say, a $100,000 grant, and you come up with all the work that you need to have done, you come out to, say, $95,000. And you make up that remaining $5,000 with that nice big $100,000 number with things like supplies and a filing cabinet, and maybe a really cool math book or something that you don't really need. They'll be able to tell, and they're not going to give you that money. You know, if this is a federal agency, that's my money. I'm a taxpayer. That's my money. They're not just going to give it to you for stuff that you don't necessarily need. My last one is for more for faculty. Well, for you too. Make sure you work with someone in the department or in the graduate school to proofread your budget, to go over and make sure that you're doing everything right. This is, again, another one of those things where you have to submit the information to the agency or to the foundation in a very specific format. You can't just cook up your own Excel spreadsheet and send it off and say, here's the money that I want. They'll send it back to you. They want to see it in their form, with numbers in the correct places, and then all that stuff. So you want to work with someone who has done that before, who's knowledgeable, and will make sure that you can follow all the rules and regulations. That's it. Any questions? Well, thank you. Any questions at all?
Just on style of writing, when you showed that slide where it said it looks good when you start very, very detailed, aren't you supposed to have a topic sentence that is allowed to be broad and say, we want teachers to learn, we want to learn from teachers, blah, 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 and then go into the specifics? Or do you just go straight to the jugular?
I don't know what you're talking about. Is it Smart one? Smart Metrics one? I think it is. Slowest. This one.
Yeah.
Right? So this would be probably a decent introductory sentence. So what I mean by stating objectives is that somewhere within your proposal you'll be asked to say what the specific objective of your proposal is. Not the broad overview of I'm working in this field of teacher education and I want to learn how they do their job better. That's a great, like you said, introductory sentence or a good elevator pitch type thing. But at some point, you're going to want to say this. Because again, if all you say is this right here, that doesn't give them enough information to be able to effectively evaluate your proposal. Any others? Plenty of time. All right, well, my contact information on the last slide, which I believe will get sent out to everybody. If everybody, any questions, feel free to give me a call or email anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.